Welcome to Insidious Inc. Tonight we're diving into something truly unsettling. 3 terrifying tales tied to St. Patrick's Day. They say the holiday is all about luck, celebration, fortune, and green everywhere. But luck works both ways. For every shamrock, there's a curse. Tonight we're uncovering 3 terrifying stories that prove some legends aren't just stories, they are warnings. Viewer discretion is advised. Some of these tales are not for the faint of heart, but before we begin, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. You wouldn't want to miss what's coming next. Now, let's get into it. Imagine you are walking home alone on a foggy night, the road silent, the air thick and heavy, pressing against you like an unseen force. Then, a sound cuts through the stillness. Hoofbeats. Slow, deliberate, echoing through the mist like a death knell, each step heavier than the last. At first, you think it must be a trick of the wind, the distant echo of a lone traveller making their way home. But then the air turns icy. The hairs on the back of your neck stand up. Something feels wrong. The sound is getting closer. You turn, expecting to see a rider approaching. Nothing. The road behind you is empty, no movement, no sign of life, but the hoofbeats, they don't stop. And that's when you realize you've already been marked. The Dullahan is Ireland's own headless horseman, a cursed entity that rides in the dead of night, not to chase, not to hunt, but to collect. Unlike the legend of Sleepy Hollow, the Dullahan doesn't need to pursue its victims, because once it calls your name, your fate is sealed. Some say you'll hear 3 heavy knocks on your door before it arrives, a warning, a death sentence. Others claim the candles around you flicker and die in its presence, as if the very air rejects the light, consumed by an approaching darkness. And if you happen to see it, there's no escaping it. The Dullahan's head is said to be grotesque, its flesh rotting, its grin stretching unnaturally wide, eyes that burn like embers, seeing beyond the veil of the living. Some say it carries its own decayed skull, raising it high to search for its next victim. Others claim it uses a human spine as a whip, cracking it against the earth as it rides forward. And once it arrives at its destination, once the name has been spoken, it doesn't need a sword, it doesn't need a weapon. The victim simply drops dead. It does not stop, it does not bargain. There are no prayers, no pleas, no hiding places that can save you. If the Dullahan is coming, your soul has already been claimed. And the worst part, you can't run, you can't hide. The Dullahan doesn't stop until it gets what it came for. It doesn't care how far you run or how loud you scream. It is death itself, riding beneath the moonlight, seeking another soul to take. So if you ever find yourself alone on an empty road, if you hear hoofbeats approaching through the fog, don't turn around. Because if you see the Dullahan, you won't live to tell the story. Some ghosts haunt houses. Others haunt the living. But this one, she haunts the future itself. The Banshee isn't just a legend. She's an omen, a harbinger of death. Her wail isn't just a sound, it's a death sentence. And those who hear it, they don't live to forget. For centuries, people across Ireland have sworn they've seen her, a pale, ghostly woman with hollow eyes, sometimes dressed in a tattered robe, other times drenched in blood. Her hair flows wildly, tangled like the souls she mourns. Her face is twisted in sorrow, her mouth open in an endless scream. But what does everyone agree on? Her cry is not human. It's not just a scream. It's something deeper, something ancient, a sound that freezes the blood in your veins, that shakes you to your core, a sound so unnatural, so filled with grief, that it feels as if the world itself is mourning. And worse, it means someone you love is about to die. One of the most chilling accounts comes from a woman in County Clare. She was home alone one night, sitting by the fire, when she heard it, a soft, keening wail outside her window. At first, she thought it was the wind, maybe an animal crying in the distance, but then it came again, louder, closer. A sound so filled with sorrow, it felt like the walls around her were grieving. She ran to the window. No one was there. But the wailing, it didn't stop. It grew louder, and it grew closer, until it felt like it was inside the house with her. That's when her candle flickered and went out. A suffocating silence followed, and in that moment, she knew. The next morning, she got the news. Her brother had died in his sleep, and she wasn't the only one. For centuries, families all over Ireland have reported the same thing, a banshee's cry before tragedy. Some have seen her standing at their doorstep, weeping. Others have heard her wailing through the fields unseen, and every time, death follows. So if you ever hear a soft, sorrowful wail in the dead of night, don't ignore it, don't investigate, don't even breathe. Because by the time you realize what it means, it's already too late. While some ghosts haunt houses, some ghosts watch from the shadows, lurking just beyond the edge of sight. Others whisper in the dark, their voices carried on the wind, chilling the bones of those who hear them. But some refuse to stay dead. Meet the Irish giant. This isn't just a legend, this isn't a myth, this is real. Charles Byrne was a man unlike any other. Towering over 7 feet tall, he was so massive that people believed he wasn't fully human. Some whispered that he was descended from the ancient Celtic giants, the remnants of an era long gone, beings of extraordinary size and strength, cursed to fade into obscurity. But Byrne's story didn't end with his death. Before he passed, he had one final request, one desperate plea. He wanted to be buried at sea. His body lay to rest where no one could disturb him. He feared what men of science would do to him after death, how they would pick him apart, study him, display him like some unnatural specimen. And he was right to be afraid, because they didn't listen. His corpse was stolen, his skeleton was put on display, his body reduced to nothing more than an exhibit. For centuries, his remains were paraded in front of spectators, his final wish completely ignored. And that's when the sightings began. At first, it was nothing more than rumours, whispers of an unseen presence near his former resting places. Then, the stories became more chilling. People reported seeing a massive figure roaming the countryside. Some claimed they saw a towering shadow moving across the cliffs at night, a hulking silhouette that seemed to watch from a distance, before disappearing into the fog. Then came the footsteps. A slow, rhythmic pounding on the earth, like something impossibly large was walking just behind them. Some turned, expecting to see a traveller or an animal, but there was nothing. The road would be empty, the field silent, but the feeling of being followed never faded. One man, travelling alone late at night, swore he felt the ground tremble beneath his feet. He thought it was an earthquake, but the shaking was too deliberate. He turned back, heart pounding in his chest, but the road was deserted. Yet even as he ran, he could hear the footsteps following him, slow, steady, relentless. Many believe Byrne's restless spirit is still searching for peace, for justice, for the respect he was denied in death, but most of all, many believe he is angry. He was forgotten, used, displayed like a freak instead of a man, and now his spirit refuses to rest. So if you ever find yourself alone on an empty road, if you feel the ground tremble beneath your feet, if you hear slow, heavy footsteps echoing behind you, just remember, some giants never sleep. And there you have it. 3 terrifying stories from Ireland's haunted past. The Dullahan, the Banshee, the Irish Giant, each more chilling than the last. So tell me, which of these stories creeped you out the most? Or have you ever had a paranormal experience yourself? Let me know in the comments. And before you go, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Because this was just a taste of the terrifying legends waiting to be uncovered.